Hello, everyone, and our presentation is about patient-centeredness in healthcare. I would like to start by showing a short 2-minute video that we will discuss afterward as part of our approach to patient-centered healthcare services. So, quite an emotional movie, and I commend التجمع الصحي بالمنطقة الشرقية, the Eastern Province Cluster, for such a very educational and eye-opener video. Patient-centeredness in healthcare. A fact that individuals have different values, needs, and preferences, and that these needs and preferences guide the full aspect of the complete cycle of care. The question is, how does this video that we have just watched change the way we look at our patients? Are we patient-centered? Are we paying attention to patients' needs, values, preferences, emotional factors? Or are we dealing with them as subjects, as cases that have to be performed and duties that have to be carried out? This is the question. We all receive such images. These are clips of images that of messages that we receive on our mobile phone from different agencies. Dear customer, dear owner, dear partner, dear guest, etc., etc. So how do we view our patients? Do we view them as patients or as people or beneficiaries, customers or guests? Because that certainly affects drastically the notion of patient-centeredness and how do we interact with them and how do we perceive them. Patients go through different touch points through the full cycle of care. So what are touch points? Touch points basically are every single type of communication that the patient receives and interacts with your institute through the full cycle, starting from communications such as street advertisements, signs, brochures, folders, websites, SMS messages, etc. Accessibility, the location of your building, the structure of the building, the architecture and the decoration of your building, the interior design, the availability of parking, the accessibility of the building for disabled patients, the behavior and the attitude and the appearance of your security guard, your receptionists, your nurses, your doctors, and finally, the service itself, how comfortable or uncomfortable or maybe painful is the service that you're providing. So by outlining the full cycle of care and identifying some of the main factors at each step of this cycle, you identify the full journey and the touch points, and then maybe by tackling each and every one of these, you become more patient-centered and aware of patients' needs and desires. So in terms of engagement, the first engagement of the patient with your facility is by the advertisement that this patient receives, which could be a welcoming or a discouraging advertisement, from the design, from the look, from the pictures or infographics. It could be an advertisement that get the patient engaged and interested in coming, or maybe disengaged and not so interested in joining in. Even the tone of the call center and the welcoming note, etc. Then the location, and this geographic location, where is it located, the district that it is located in, the availability of the parking, the accessibility for disability and for older patients, the design, exterior and interior design of the building, and the overall environment. All this may result in the patient, after being encouraged and engaged, to pursue the service. Once the patient is there to obtain the service, it is the receptionist, the security guard, the nurse, the physician, appearance, language, attitude, even body language that affect the patient's interest in obtaining the service. Beside what we have mentioned before of facility and environment, and also the availability and ease of the billing and the insurance services in case of radiological procedures. All these three will eventually lead to this patient sharing the experience of his journey with family, friends, in meetings, online, on Twitter. And what kind of sharing would that be? Is it going to be a positive sharing regarding the institute or your department, admiring it with positive notes? Patient will come back to you, will recommend it to other people to use, or will actually discourage other people to use? Now, for this journey, there is no single way to create such journey. Each institute and each organization has its own needs, and it needs to find its own journey and own touch points to create the best situation for itself. However, as for the patient, the outcome of these touch points could be positive, because these touch points might bring interest in the patient to join, anticipation in experiencing this journey, and vigilance as an ultimate outcome. Patient might be positively accepting your messages, building trust with the patient who thinks that you're trustworthy, and after getting the service admires the attitude and the service that has been provided. Or maybe it will be distraction, leading to a surprise, and then amazement of the quality of the service that's being provided. These are all positive sort of feedbacks, but it also could be negative because your message could be sort of a nuisance. It's annoying to the patient, that makes the patient uncomfortable and maybe angry, leading to rage and discouragement. Or maybe apprehension because of the kind of message that is being distributed, which builds up fear in the patient's psychology, and then maybe eventually terror and complete rejection of the service that's being provided. So tackling these points appropriately and building up the right momentum in your patient will lead to the right or wrong results based on the touch points that the patient goes through in the journey of the healthcare. For an example, this is an example that Ministry of Health went through. Medication refill. We know that about 20% of the overall sick population have chronic illnesses such as hypertension, hypercholesterolemia, diabetes, reflux, etc., hypercholesterolemia, etc. And those patients will take their medication for the rest of their lives. Those patients actually are more familiar with the medication that is being prescribed, with its use, with its side effects, and with its price and all aspects of the medication, probably more than the prescribing physician himself or herself. However, to get this medication on insurance or government pay, the patient has to go through an ordeal to get it cashed or dispensed to them on regular basis. And this is repeated maybe monthly or maybe quarterly. The patient has to take an appointment, which could be delayed appointment and difficult to reach to. Then the patient has to drive and struggle with the crowded roads and inavailability of parking spaces. The patient has to go through narrow and crowded corridors and stuffy waiting rooms, waiting for the physician, waiting for hours to get the examination done by the allocated physician. Then once it is done, the patient has to go to the pharmacy, and maybe there's somebody there, maybe somebody is not there, maybe the medication is not available, and waiting in line. This wastes a whole day of the patient's life, excusing from work, excusing from daily and family duties in order to get his medication dispensed, the medication that he's used to and he knows more than anybody else. It is an extremely annoying process. And when the patient reports the experience and the measures that he uses for this experience would be extremely negative. So what you need to do to be patient-centered is to analyze this, understand the kind of population you're dealing with, elderly, pediatrics, women, men, what kind of disabilities they have, then identify their needs and map the journey that they go through. Once you identify the experiences that are relevant to this journey, then you can identify the touch points, identify the areas of struggle and pain, and then design the appropriate approach to this in order to meet patients' needs and expectations. So what are the patient's needs? The patients need accessibility, care and assurance, availability, speed of service, and comfort. He feels disappointed and tired with inability to reach the physician or the department or get the medication cashed, annoyed by this, bored by the long waiting time and waiting and long standing queues, frustrated and sad and maybe anger of this. And this creates other options. Maybe the patient will eventually skip taking the medication or decides that he's not going to wait for it to be cashed by the institute. He's just going to go and buy it, which is an extra expense that annoys him and makes him angry. Or maybe choose to go to another institute. Few patients, well, have to surrender and accept it sort of unwillingly, or maybe raise a complaint. So what do patients prefer? They prefer the service to be efficient and fast, with care and attention, in a comfortable environment with a reasonable price if there's any price to be paid. So how your touch points assess this and resolve it? You have to make it, you have to make yourself more accessible. You have to make the process easy to use. You have to engage the patient's feelings and ideas and suggestions to improve the system so that they feel empowered and they feel engaged and they feel part of the improvement of the overall system. This gives them comfort. And obviously, if there's any cost, it has to be economic. This is shifting the equation from just providing a service to providing a patient-centered service. Obviously, this ended in the medication refill issue with Ministry of Health to producing an application called Wasfati, which is actually a 3 steps. It's an online or a phone consultation where the physician is actually doing a quick over-the-line online or a phone call sort of check on the patient's overall health and making sure that he is not complaining or suffering from any complications. This is followed by an SMS message that is forwarded to the patient with the medication name and dose and amount. And the same message is delivered to the pharmacy, so the patient can go directly to the retail pharmacy, not necessarily to the hospital pharmacy, to cash his medication, or even in some situations, the pharmacy would be delivering the medication to the patient. So by identifying the full cycle of care and the touch point, Wasfati resolved all these annoying and tedious steps into an easy to use, very comfortable journey. I think we can experience the same, or we can all say the same about other non-medical administrative experiences that we all lived through and we all use daily, like Abshir. Look at the way it has resolved almost over 50 functionality that's related to the Ministry of Interior. Tawakkalna, with huge experience and ease of life that it created during the COVID-19 period. Najm, resolving the issues of all the car accidents at ease. And our online Saudi Health Commission services for all physicians, for their CME hours, for their credentials, for their courses, for their certification, and for their training. These are all applications that we use on daily basis, and this is obviously for physicians, that has actually made a major impact on our lives, and it is actually centered on the customer needs and what they require and aspire for. I will leave you with a final 3-minute video from the I1 Medical Center at King Abdulaziz University. This is an oncology center that is specialized in PET imaging, and it took an attitude of being patient-centered, trying to provide their patients with the utmost experience of being comfortable, welcomed, ease, and being attended to their needs, particularly being of an oncology category. So let's watch this together.
التعافي من المرض هو رحلة تحتاج إلى أكثر من محطة للعلاج، وكل محطة لها قدرها من الأهمية حين تدلك على الطريق وتهيئ لك أسباب المواصلة في تشخيص مرضك. مركز آيوان الطبي هو خياركم الأمثل لتشخيص الأورام عبر كادره المتخصص وإمكاناته الطبية الحديثة. يستقبلكم بحفاوة كجزء من قيمة المهنية التي يؤمن بها وبأهميتها تجاه عملائه الكرام. يشرح لكم بكل ود تفاصيل الخدمة ويطلعكم على آلياتها وخطواتها بكل دقة، كما يقبل هنا شركات التأمين لتوفير راحتكم. قوموا بتجهيز مريضكم وأخذ علاماته الحيوية في غرف مخصصة ومهيئة للتمتع بالراحة والخصوصية خلال مدة الفحص. يتم تحضير المادة المشعة التي تم تجهيزها له خصيصا بناء على المعايير العالمية الدقيقة والمتطورة، وحقنه بالمادة المشعة من قبل كادر مؤهل ومدرب تدريبا متقدم. يهيأ له مساحة خاصة للتمتع بجميع سبل الراحة والخصوصية قبل إجراء التصوير المقطعي البوزيتروني. بعد حقن المريض بالمادة الطبية المشعة، تتركز هذه المادة في الأنسجة المريضة. هنا يبدأ دور أخصائي الطب النووي ومهمته في التصوير المقطعي بالإصدار البوزيتروني PET-CT، وهو جهاز متخصص في الكشف الدقيق عن الأورام والسرطانات في جسم الإنسان. يعتبر مركز آي1 هو المركز الفريد من نوعه في المملكة العربية السعودية، في إطار المراكز الخاصة المستقلة التي تمتلك أجهزة لإنتاج النظائر المشعة وأجهزة التصوير المقطعي البوزيتروني المتطورة والمتقدمة في تشخيص الأورام وتحديد أماكنها وحجمها ومدى انتشارها بدقة عالية. خلال ساعات معدودة بعد الانتهاء من الفحص، تصلكم نسخة من التقرير المفصل لحالتكم المرضية ونسخة أخرى لطبيبكم المعالج لتقوموا بعدها باستكمال رحلة علاجكم بإذن الله. مركز آي1 الطبي، دليلك الخبير في العلاج والتصوير.
I think by this, I conclude my presentation, and what I aimed to do is to highlight the touch points, the different touch points that patients go through in a full cycle of care, and draw the attention for the necessity of understanding the population, mapping the cycle of care, identifying the touch points, and understand and realize the impact of each and every one of these touch points, and how do you maximize these impacts positively on the patient, so that you end on with an overall excellent experience for the patient through the whole cycle of care. This is shifting from just delivering a service, providing a service, into actually attending to patients' needs and requirements and desires, fulfilling them in a professional, comfortable, and a culture of excellence environment. Thank you very much.